Okay, when I tell you I jumped for joy when I saw this new music video from Mitski, I haven't been this annoying since her last album. And lo and behold, I checked Spotify and she's releasing another album. This one is called Nothing's About to Happen to Me. And the only song that's been released so far is Where's My Phone, which is the second track on the list. And I'm really excited about it because this is very, very different from her last album. I feel like The Land is Inhospitable was very mature compared to a lot of her other stuff, but also more ambient. Obviously, she does have some really good instrumentation, but also, like, this song is glitching and it's bleeping out and it's like crazy. And it's got the very rough guitar sound. There's a couple of other songs that have the similar sound, like Townie, or even like Brand New City has kind of this very like angry guitar, which I feel like is also in this song. And also, like, just the titles, like, they give me the impression like a Dead Women, Sharon's Obel Karen is actually a term for the coin placed in or on the mouth of a dead person before burial. Bribery to the underworld or the afterlife, so very much another title elusive to death. Thank you, Wikipedia. Keep them going. I like to send them money every couple of years because I want this website to stay on the internet. Just a little side note. But anyways, lightning and cats. Honestly, sometimes cats are symbols of death. I just watched a movie called Doctor Sleep where a cat always goes into a room when it senses death. So there is that interpretation. And she changed her Spotify banner to the cat, and it's really cute. I want to find out what art piece it's from, or if it is, which it looks like it is. But yeah, anyways, since this album releases in 41 days, 1 hour, and 42 minutes of recording this, I've decided to do, like, I don't know, I just want to really look at everything I have because I don't have anything else. I downloaded the video and I've decided I'm just gonna kind of riff over it. So, yeah. I'll stay out until my mind is like a clear glass with nothing going on. Okay, so the first shot of this music video is a camera coming up a big well. I saw some comments online that were saying some stuff about technology that we'll get into later, but when I first saw this, the first thing that I thought of was, oh, they're recreating the shot from The Ring. And actually, I recently watched the 1998 original Ringu, which the 2002 The Ring is based off of, and I think that it's a very specific shot, and the way that I'm going to interpret this is that she decided to use The Ring as like inspiration for this, because also The Ring or Ringu is about a dead girl. And also I saw a Letterboxd review. It says, "There's an image in Ringu that floors me every time I watch the movie, and it is of Asakawa embracing the skeleton of the long-dead Sadako at the bottom of the well where the girl was left to die." I think that this really forgiving image that Ringu's creating kind of relates in a way to the themes that Mitski's also presenting throughout this music video, which I'm also, like, gonna slowly get into. But yeah, for now, just keep this image on the back burner because I think it's so important in the context of me thinking this is about Ringu. Okay, so before I get into like more specific shot by shot for the music video, let's go over the broad strokes of the story just so you can get a sense of what's going on. So we open on Mitski coming out of this well and hauling a bucket of water back inside. And when she gets to this house, there are three protagonists-ish that we need to focus on. There is an old woman wandering around, there is a very young woman wandering around, and there is a very crazy Mitski running around. And when she gets into the house, she goes upstairs, and immediately you can tell there's a very protective energy from Mitski to this younger girl. She is also very intentionally made up. She has very rosy cheeks and, soft lips and all this stuff. And she's, kind of a picture of innocence. And there's also, you know, this older woman who's kind of stumbling around the house. It's not exactly clear what her purpose is, what she's supposed to be doing. And while Mitski is kind of fawning over this younger girl, something is going on outside. There's a guy out there, and by her expression, Mitski is very unhappy about this. So they go downstairs, and this is where things kind of start to get out of her control. You know, they've left her room, and now she has this girl kind of melting through her arms, a back and forth of cat and mouse. The girl wants to go out and do something. Mitski doesn't want her to go. She doesn't want her to interact with these men. It's very specifically like a kind of threatening male presence throughout the music video. And there's also like these elderly women peeking inside. And then when the girl escapes Mitski's arms, the elder woman comes up behind her and she refuses to let go of Mitski, and things kind of just spiral from there. This girl is talking to people. Mitski is unable to keep track of her. She's unable to protect her. More people are entering the house, and at this point, Mitski's kind of just holding on to these two very different people. You know, some people have theorized it's allegorical of her younger self and her older self, and this struggle with that, and we'll definitely go over it with that lens. And then she kills someone. She kills someone dead. And again, it's like this threatening male presence that she's trying to eradicate, that she's trying to protect this younger version of herself from, and she just can't. So by the end of the music video, this girl's being carried back off to the well. Mitski can't do anything, and you know, her future's not looking too bright. And then if we go back to the beginning of the music video all over again, it's kind of her coming out of that well and trying to fix it all over again. But you know, it's kind of, she's just trapped in this cycle where she can't get out of. And so it's a very kind of bleak Sisyphusian music video, despite how like crazy it is. It's very, you know, kind of a downer. Alright, so before we move on to the lyricism that I want to unpack, I just want to go over a couple of other things I pulled out from the music video. Elephant in the room. It's a very old-fashioned environment. You know, the costuming and the setting, as well as the presence of like mailman and milkmen, and things of that nature, which is a very interesting contrast to the lyrics of and the title of Where's My Phone. So we'll kind of get into that. Another thing that I noticed is that there's a lot of statues very intentionally highlighted in the music video. I feel like I can interpret this as kind of like a romanticization, you know, the whole concept of being a muse is very much in the art of, you know, live portraiture or sculpture, and then also kind of the literal set in stone of these figures, while also kind of having themes of fighting with your own past, and then also kind of that same romanticization. They're grabbing their face and like holding them and like stroking them and all this stuff, which is really interesting. The house, you know, what does it represent? Is it her mind? Is it all these things coming in that she can't control? I don't know, that's up for interpretation. The editing is obviously very expressionistic. It's extremely chaotic, and intentionally so. It definitely adds to this kind of distorted sound. The choir, I kind of am building my own interpretations of, but for the moment, it's a lot of noise, and it does tie into the themes about technology that are kind of contained in the lyricism. So I don't know if that's kind of what she's going for by bringing them in. And also, like, the presence of the church kind of raises questions about, you know, more religious imagery. What, Mitski? Religious imagery? I've never heard of it. But yeah, those were just a couple of miscellaneous notes I had about the music video. So now let's talk about the lyricism. Okay, so the lyrics in the music video are much more focused on kind of the technology aspect rather than this more implicit story that's going on in the music video. And I will talk about the combination of the audio and visual and kind of how they work to serve one another. But the lyrics in kind of their own vacuum we'll go over because I think it's really cool. So, very obvious, kind of repetitive lyricism to begin with is, where's my phone, where'd it go, where'd I put my phone, guys? And I do like the repetition. She does a good job of using like repetition throughout a lot of songs when she wants to emphasize an idea. And with this, I almost equate it to this other song, which is a very different pocket of culture, but it's a song called Where's My Jewel, and it kind of like more jokingly digs into the nature of addiction and the annoyingness of having someone go, oh, where's my jewel, where's my phone, you know, where are these vices in my life that I'm seeking out. But it has a very similar repetitive question about something that isn't necessarily good for you, but that you crave and that you seek out. The first verse, a woman always on the block called me a ditch. I kind of got this sense that it's very, not self-deprecating, I guess externally deprecating, but, you know, if you look through her past songs, Mitski does not have a good history with her self-image. In Me and My Husband, she says, I'm the idiot with a painted face in the corner taking up space. That is not a very sympathetic image of yourself, and I think that this, especially if we're kind of going into her past, is that external input that kind of slowly became internalized that we see in some of her earlier work. I just want my mind to be a clear glass with nothing in my head. I think this is kind of a double entendre. Part of it is related to technology. I want my mind to be kind of, you know, thoughtless, empty, you know, nothing going on, and kind of this like, it very much serves like this kind of mindless, repetitive, just clear thoughtlessness. But also in relation to tracks like Bug Like an Angel.
This song is about addiction, and I wanted to show musically somehow that addiction is basically a cycle. You're just kind of stuck.
A clear glass could refer to, you know, addiction or alcoholism. You know, people say the term social media addiction a lot. It could very much be equating a very inarguable addiction, which is alcoholism, with technology, but in a very not like boomer, kids are always on their phone these days kind of way, because, you know, she's saying, I want my mind to be a clear glass. Either I want to be able to get rid of this destructive thought pattern that I'm in, I want to, you know, get rid of all this, or, you know, I just want to conform with society and not have to worry about all this. So I think it's really interesting, and she repeats it quite a bit. Again, it's kind of that desire to, you know, maybe not care as much as she does. Okay, so the next lyric in the verse is, I keep thinking surely somebody will save me. At every turn I learn that no one will. The phrasing of somebody will save me, in her song Nobody, there's a line, and I know no one will save me. I think that, you know, those two are very connected. Her lyrics don't have to have that kind of overlap, but they do. So, you know, in kind of the retrospective context, her saying, I think that somebody will save me, and having to learn that lesson, this is kind of going back to the past, which eventually, you know, is the reality she's accepted by the time of Nobody. Okay, so verse 2 opens, if the night is like you punched a hole into tomorrow, I would the hole all night long. I also feel the need to talk about why the word was censored in the song. It's both on Spotify and in the music video, but if you look under the music video in the description at the lyrics, it is not censored. So why did she do this? Some people speculated that it's kind of about, you know, censorship, and, you know, she's cursed in songs before, it's not really a problem, but the abruptness kind of, you know, cuts through, again, like the abruptness of if night is like you punched a hole into tomorrow. You know, it's very unpleasant, you know, and a lot of it is kind of meant to be dissonant and discordant and all the fun words. I feel like the first one, like if night is like you punched a hole into tomorrow, it can kind of talk about the abruptness, the phenomenon where you look down at your phone and you look up and it's been 3 hours, you know, that kind of suddenness. But also the second line kind of gives me the sense, like, there's the obvious interpretation of, I hesitate to say intimacy, because that doesn't sound very, I don't know. But anyways, it's kind of like this back and forth between the two. But the next lyric is very interesting, like a bug floating in the melted amber of a citronella candle. So Going back again to Bug Like an Angel, because it's also about alcoholism and also invokes the imagery of bugs. In Bug Like an Angel, it said that there's a bug stuck to the bottom of her glass, and in a video where she interprets the song and kind of walks through her process, she describes holding the glass that you're drinking up to the light and having the bug be kind of this angelic figure against the light.
For this, I wanted to paint a picture of someone drinking something out of a glass, and there's a little bit left in the glass, and they're drinking like this, and they realize there's a bug stuck at the bottom of their glass, and because it's stuck like this at the bottom and they're raising it, it looks like there's an angel in the sky.
So for her to invoke bug imagery again is very interesting, this time floating in the melted amber of a citronella candle. Citronella candles are meant to be bug repellent, so it's kind of this contrasting imagery of a bug in a candle that is supposed to repel them, kind of the same way that our vices are meant to, these objective warnings, oh, it's bad for you, should deter us, but we end up in these situations anyways. And then she starts saying, I will float until my mind is like a clear wax melted in the dome. And then the bridge is just this, in the music video, is kind of losing control of your own mind, and also with the context of wanting to kind of conform or not care, or, to have your mind be like a clear glass. This is very much like, okay, there is truly nothing going on at this point, and, they completely abandon all lyrics because, this is what she's been saying she wants the whole time, and now it's happening, but, the visuals are kind of at battle with the, I guess, quote-unquote satisfaction of the character technically getting what they want. And then the outro ends with very distorted vocals of where's my phone, where'd it go, etc., etc. Anyways, now let us join these two forces in holy matrimony and talk about what a very Amish-looking music video has to do with loving your phone. So the main audiovisual stuff that I want to point out, it's a pretty short list, but also just like pay attention to the way that both the song and the music video kind of build in sync, because, again, these are very like different concepts, but by putting them together, it's trying to say something, and I don't think we should ignore that. But anyways, here are some of my standouts. So in the beginning, when she says, the old woman is, kind of caressing the face of a statue, and it is immediately paralleled with Mitski cradling the face of this very, what's supposed to be her younger self or her past. And I think it's a very interesting parallel because, statues, especially in like this Greek style, are considered very old and, relics of a past, and to parallel that with her holding her younger self, trying to protect her, and also contrasting it against the image of like kind of this senile old lady just like grabbing at statues. You're like, oh my god, she's so crazy. But when Mitski does it, it's like, kind of this like romantic, very personal thing. So it was an interesting contrast. Another one is somebody will save me, at every turn I learn that no one will. During this line, the girl looks out the window, and Mitski is kind of like freaking out because she realizes, even though she's going back over it over and over, trying to save herself, no one's there besides her future self looking back on this moment, and, she can't save herself. It's learning to accept it. But this is kind of a very vehement rejection of, just letting the past be the past, letting bygones be bygones. It's very stubborn, which is why it kind of all comes to a head at the very end where she kills someone. Another interesting editing choice is when she says, if not, it's like you punched a hole into tomorrow, I would f the whole long. There is a very brief cutaway of a man peeking in through the window right before it cuts back to her, kind of increasingly escalated, taking care of this girl or trying to protect her, you know, covering her eyes, kind of trying to preserve your innocence in a memory, which is very tragic and dramatic, while also fleeing your future and kind of being unwilling to confront it. So again, it's kind of like these overlapping themes, but the way that she's able to do it in so many ways throughout like a 3-minute video is absolutely bonkers. Okay, I was about to end the video, but then I noticed this in the description of her music video. There is a cast where all of the roles of all of the characters are explicitly stated. So the girl, who I have kind of been calling like the younger version of herself, is called Sister in the cast list. And that's a very interesting thing when you contrast it with the older woman being called Auntie. There's still familial roles in the family, but it is interesting that she went out of her way to define it. And then also, we have prying busybody number 1 and 2. These were the old ladies outside, so I do think it's very interesting that we kind of have this external, like, I don't know, the casting titles feel very opinionated, like this prying busybody, and also the nosy neighbor, all very interesting, and kind of like painting this picture of the past that we're supposedly set in. And then, more interestingly, Romeo is played by Sam Geller, and Mercutio, who I did not know about, but is a close friend to Romeo and a blood relative of Prince Aeschylus and Count Paris. So he's explicitly named Romeo, and it's interesting because she also, like I said earlier, pulls from Greek imagery with Karen's obol. So lots of references happening. So definitely when the album drops and if she makes more music videos, keep an eye out for those. But anyways, that is actually the end of the video. Thank you for listening to me yap. I would love to know other interpretations or thoughts on the music video or the lyricism or where she plans to go with this album, because we have a month to yearn and pine and think about this. So I would love to not just talk at the wall. Anyways, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.